OK, Molly, I'm going to bring in David Shipley now, former inmate at HMP Wandsworth, who now campaigns for prison reform. Molly, I know you've spoken to David a number of times about conditions inside prisons. David, thank you so much for joining us on the UK tonight. First of all, your reaction to what Molly's report showed us there?
Yeah, it's really depressing because if you look at Long Lartin, for example, a year ago, Charlie Taylor inspected it and he described what he found then around the drone situation as being a national security risk, and it's still happening. And I think most prisons in this country, if you went to look at the situation at night, you would probably see something similar happening, and it really is a huge risk to security.
Specifically, we're concentrating on Wandsworth Prison, but, you know, Molly's seen this happen over a number of prisons in the UK. This is widespread, isn't it? And as I said to Molly, and as Molly well knows, she's covered this for some time now, this isn't a new problem. This has been going on for years. But the scale of it now, we're in the realms of serious, organised crime gangs operating this.
That's the key issue. Yeah, this is currently being handled locally. So prisons are trying to deal with it locally, local police forces are trying to manage it. But what they're up against is national and even international organised crime gangs. And often you'll get situations where the same drones will have been involved in deliveries to multiple prisons across the country. You know, they're just being taken around the country to run different delivery networks. It's very sophisticated. And unless the Home Office and the Ministry of Justice set up a nationwide system to actually interdict drones, catch drones, try to track the operators of them, this is just going to get worse.
David, hi, it's Molly.
Hey.
You will have seen it from Wandsworth. From your perspective, why is it getting worse?
So if you go back to around 2018, actually, there was very little drone activity. Mostly, I think, because it was relatively new technology, and there was this thing called Operation Trenton, which was being run nationwide, which was about not just stopping the drones and catching them, but trying to work out from the drones' black boxes and firmware where they'd come from, go to try to find the operators, arrest them, disrupt the networks. That was brought to an end at the end of 2018. There hasn't really been any nationwide operation going on since then. So we've seen drone numbers just going up and up and up. Drones getting cheaper, partly because of the war in Ukraine, which has developed technology a lot, developed a lot of operator skills. So now you've got drones that can carry 50 kilos or more, which are available commercially. And even now, what we're starting to see is people building their own drones because they're cheaper and they come without transponders and without serial numbers that are harder to track. So it's becoming easier to get drones, easier to use them. The drones can lift more. And there's no real centralised effort to stop them. That's the big problem.
Yeah, David, Molly in her report, you know, as part of that was saying that these drones are now sophisticated and those used for agriculture could effectively, at some point, take a prisoner from the prison window, lift a prisoner out of prison, which, you know, when you hear that, sounds unbelievable, but it's not. It could actually happen. Talk to us about the impact of drones inside prisons, because we're very much looking at the next step there. But what's the effect of drones on prisons now in taking in drugs and weapons and so on?
Well, it's not just drugs. I mean, I've heard about Ozempic being transported into prisons and being caught on a drone. So essentially, anything a prisoner might want, they can afford to pay for it. They can get it brought in. And often you'll have prisoners who are running sophisticated drug supply networks within prisons, using these drones to get their supply in. Once those drugs are in the prison, they will, cause all sorts of problems. You will get debts being incurred by prisoners. There will be violence as a result. There will be deaths in custody from drug use. Often as well, it spills over into the community. So you will get drug debts which have been incurred in prison being enforced in the community. People have had situations where collectors have gone to the family members of prisoners saying, you know, your son owes this many £1,000, you need to pay it or we're going to kill him. So that this is a huge amount of harm done by getting drugs into prison. And then you have weapons. We've talked, I think you, Sky, talked in your reporting about a knife that was taken into a prison, apparently by a drone earlier this year. And that could happen more and more. Similarly, there's nothing really stopping drones being used to take guns into prisons. It's just a matter of prisoners wanting to do that and be willing to pay for it and take the risk. So I think we have to be very, very worried. And I would go back to what Charlie Taylor has said. This is a national security threat.
Yeah, actually, Molly, that's a really good point, isn't it? A drone being able to take a gun into prison, the sort of mayhem and danger that would create.
someone actually suggested to me that the only reason it's not happened so far is because that would then make it even more serious a problem and actually stop the kind of lucrative trade that we're seeing at the moment, because you've got a weapon such as a gun going in. So for now, they want to keep the trade alive, I guess, if you like, rather than stop it. And they think that perhaps getting that kind of weapon in would finally see a stop to it. But I'm interested also in what do you think could be done that isn't being done? Because we've heard about what's not working, but what can work?
Yeah, well, there's some very basic stuff, which you mentioned in your report, the physical infrastructure that can stop drones, so netting over the wings, netting over the exercise yards to stop and catch drones, windows being repaired so that people can't just put stuff through. There are some prisons, I know Park, for example, has had holes in its windows for well over a year now, and it's just not being repaired. So there's some really basic stuff which should be getting taken charge of by individual prison governors. And then there's also, we need a nationwide strategy. Drones are sophisticated bits of kit, drone operators are sophisticated, as you've been mentioning. We can't reasonably expect individual police forces or individual prisons to know what to do when they catch a drone. But you can look at the firmware, you can look at they have effectively black boxes on them, so you can see where they've been, and a proper intelligence gathering hub should be recreated in order to actually pull all that information together and try to work out who is behind these drone supply networks and go after the people at the top.